Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. This month we're having a Christmas special where we dive into all the amazing IronViz entries. And today I have Dennis with me, Tableau visionary and ambassador, who did a really cool viz on a culinary show. So over to you, Dennis, to give a short intro about yourself.
So my name is Dennis Cao. I am currently a professor of social work at Carleton University, which is based in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I started using Tableau in November of 2020, fell in love with the tool, been trying to use it as much as I can, personally as well as professionally in my research and teaching. I do research around health equity issues and use mapping quite a bit to look at spatial issues pertaining to health and healthcare. Yeah, so I like maps, and a lot of my visits, I include maps, and I think they're a great tool for communication.
Sounds good. I think you're really famous for all your map visits, but a lot of the committee members will probably agree with me when we call you the master of maps, and you basically live up to that. Because I know even with Tableau's newest update, I think it was 2024.3, where they had the spatial parameters, and I think within a day or two, you had a viz out that demonstrates the power of spatial parameters. But first, let's talk about your IronViz. So how did the idea came about? Because entertainment is such a wide topic.
Yeah, so I've been wanting to do a viz on Solitary Gourmet for quite a bit. My family and I, we've watched the show. We really love the show. I think it comes from, I think at least for me, I'm really fascinated by Japanese culture. I would love to visit Japan one of these days. And then my family and I, we really like watching food shows, whether they're things like the British baking show or other shows. And this one is just kind of an interesting little show that seems really low budget. I don't know how much they spent on this, but Godo-san, who's the character, really loves food, and it shows when he's eating. And it's cool that it also shows the neighborhoods that he walks around looking for. And so I thought it would be a great project to map out all the restaurants in the show. I've been thinking about doing that for a while. I think the challenge was I don't understand Japanese, and so I read the subtitles. The challenge would have been looking up the addresses for all the individual restaurants, which I wasn't able to do for this visualization, but maybe sometime in the future. Also, I think some of the stores are closed because of COVID as well, right? I think in season 10, Godo-san actually goes and checks in on a few of the stores that he's visited in the past.
So I'm a foodie myself. What is your favorite food of all time?
Oh my gosh, it depends. But if there's something I had to eat for the rest of my life, I would probably say sushi.
So I haven't watched this Solitary Gourmet, but I did watch another series called Midnight Diner. I'm not too sure if you heard of it. So Midnight Diner doesn't go around Tokyo per se. It's basically a shop that people go to at the late nights, and they share a lot of stories with the cook and owner of the store. And it's really interesting because you have people from all walks of life sharing their life stories, their troubles, their happiness and success and failures. It was a really heartwarming kind of show. You didn't really have to think much. There wasn't much drama except for the characters themselves. It was something that you could just enjoy.
You know, from a social work perspective, I'm always interested in well-being and stuff like that. So one thing that's fascinating me about Japanese culture is the work culture, right? Like it seems such a stressful phenomenon. And I like Midnight Diner because people are coming in after work. There's no kind of theme, right? It just really focuses on the characters and what that brings them together into an interesting space.
Yeah, I guess it's also because the stories are all very self-contained. So there's no reason for you to start at episode 1 and watch through the
right, exactly. Yeah. And I think Solitary Gourmet kind of operates in the same way as well.
Interestingly enough, I saw an article today about the aging and disabled community in Japan increasing, and they are using AI kind of help enable some of these elderly folks to at least work in the later years. One of the examples they gave was that this old lady was homebound. She couldn't walk because of age and illness. So she actually remote control robot that operates within a restaurant, and it has a face on it, and she could
Mhm.
still perform her duties at the restaurant via the robot, but still and also chat with the diners itself. And I thought that
Right.
was really a cool way to tackle the aging problem in a lot of societies. I'm not too sure if any other societies have picked up on this trend, but I think Japan was probably one of the first few that does this.
I think, yeah, I've seen things similar to that. Japan always has the coolest technology, though, right? Like
They do.
I don't know, like it always comes from Japan, seems like. But yeah, I think there's a big role for technologies. Some of our researchers focus on the aging population, and some of the stuff that we're seeing from Japan is really interesting. The robots and the use of AI, I think that could be a really interesting and helpful tool. But there's always questions,
Yeah, but
ethics behind it and stuff, and who knows, just somebody having a robot being able to do certain tasks that they can't might make their quality of life much better as a result, right? And also remove the need to have a human caregiver there all the time and stuff like that.
that is very
Yeah,
true. Yeah. So let's talk about the design of your Viz, and maybe you
sure.
can share your screen and we talk through a little bit.
All right. So in terms of the design, people refer to me as the map master, but I think part of it is maps are usually a really prominent component of my vizzes. And oftentimes I will start with the map and organize the layout around the map. So you'll notice that the map of Japan, which kind of is this interesting shape, I started with that, and that actually serves as the base, as the background for the entire dashboard. I think when people look at the viz, I want people to be drawn to the map first. Go ahead.
I saw an article somewhere where they said that the map of Japan actually looks like a seahorse. So even now,
Yeah, it kind of does.
yeah, and now
Yeah.
you can't unsee that.
Yeah, I've seen people refer to that as well, and it's hard not to tell. But when I was designing this, one thing that I've noticed about, and I've done a few maps of Japan, is the layout. And so I did it this black off-white color. To me, it almost reminds me of black brush going across the traditional Japanese paintings and things like that. And so that was also an inspiration for me in the design. I just kept it really simple, hopefully to mirror some of those traditional paintings. Originally, I also used, and I'll show you a version of this. I have one kind of image of this. I was going to do this red to mirror the red sun or big red circle that often is in these traditional paintings that one might see. And in my feedback session with Shira, she said the red can symbolize a number of different things. And it's, in this case, she didn't think it reflected the theme or the topic. And so I actually ended up going with this kind of blue or teal color as the result of that.
That's a good call though, because I remember seeing a viz about earthquakes in Japan, and they use a very similar black and red color scheme with kind of on the left toes and all.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the other elements just kind of came together. I really wanted to keep it tight. Most of my visualizations, I'm not really good at like these long or really wide visualizations because it's hard for me to design off screen and move the things around. So I decided to just go for a one-page dashboard. The data was basically from the Tableau public data plus TV, IMDb data. I pulled the data from that and basically filtered the data down to the show. It had the episode title and the location. So I was able to break that into two columns, and I just found the latitude and longitude of the particular place. I was thinking of maybe watching every show and getting the address, which obviously would have been very labor intensive, but I just stuck with the latitude and longitude, the central point within each of the locations that were in the title.
Yeah, this is really cool. I think this is a testament to show that even with a simple data set of 20 rows, you can create a data story out of that. And you don't have to have a million rows and columns just to do that. I love the maps as the centerpiece because it builds that first impression and gives you an overview of how the entire show is structured. And the heat map just basically shows a very cool distribution of everything. And even with the maps, you have this little Taiwan and South Korea maps at the bottom that actually filters the heat map as well. So I thought that
Right.
was a pretty nice touch.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about maps because, like we said, you're the master of maps. And recently, Tableau released the 2024.3 version with the spatial parameters. So, in your opinion, how does this change how we approach mapping in general in Tableau?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think definitely one thing is allowing the user to select and really define the geographic area they want to select. That seems like a new thing in Tableau that I think you weren't able to do in Tableau alone. A lot of my stuff, I've tried to mirror things that you can more easily do in a GIS tool. But in order to do it in Tableau, oftentimes you have to hack Tableau in a way sometimes. The new intersection calculation that allows you to calculate the intersection between those two different map layers. You no longer have to model the data anymore. You can just bring in the data and then find the intersection between the two map layers. I think those things are getting closer to what you're currently able to do in a GIS tool. Tableau just keeps on improving, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think traditionally, even for the business setting, people don't usually use maps. And it's just because it's really hard to derive insights from a map. It serves very well as an overview and for you to explore. But if you're talking about operational level folks, they can't really act on insights on a map. And I think with the new features, especially the one that you said about having the radius around a point and having the intersect formula to do that, that will be really interesting because I think that opens up a lot of new avenues of how this potentially can be used in business dashboard.
Yeah, and obviously I'm in a very different space than the typical Tableau user, right? The typical Tableau user brings in data to Tableau and essentially stays within Tableau. And when it comes to mapping, I'm always conscious of that and understand that. So I think these new functions, it just means Tableau is getting much better with doing things with spatial data, which will definitely help people make better maps that are more effective in communicating and also serve as better navigational tools in the end.
I mean, the one thing that pops to my mind when I was looking at it was possibility of analyzing livability scores within an area because you could use the radius and the intersect to measure how far facilities, be it medical, food, or leisure and stuff like that, is near to your home. And I think that could be really powerful when it comes to urban planning, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
So this has been great. I've had so much fun chatting with you on this Fizz, and I think this is really something that is chill because, like with the show, it's just a sharing of a data story on how this guy travels across and it eats food.
I know.
That's really
fun. It's just a very simple show. I mean, it's as simple as you get, right? He's a working guy. He works, and then in at some point in the day, he just gets hungry. He just has to find a place to eat. They film him eating the entire meal, which is very different from other shows. I don't think there's any editing. It's just him eating a meal, which is just a kind of engaging, like drawn you to that, right? And the actor does a great job, and it seems like he's really enjoying it. Well, I don't know. Food I don't think he's acting at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both we are foodies, so we understand how food brings you joy and everything.
Yeah. So one of these days, I definitely want to visit Japan, kind of do a tour of some of the places he went to. So I would love to go at some point. Yeah.
You should. It's a beautiful place. Before I had kids, that was me and my wife's favorite place to go every year. So it's been great chatting with you, Dennis. I hope everyone learned something new from this, and we'll catch everyone on tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. It was fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Take care.